Lucia, and again, welcome to everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. As Lucia said, this is our first official event for our really innovative new platform, the Global Green Recovery Collaborative. And I am a co-founder of this project as well. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I think this is a really exciting project because we truly are aiming to be a global platform that's accessible to people who are interested in this idea of green recovery and working in fields that relate to green recovery at all levels, from the community to the global level in all parts of the world. And so we're going to tell you a little bit more about the platform after this interactive activity that Lucia mentioned. So we'll start with the panel, we'll go into an activity, and then we're just going to give you a brief overview of what's on this platform and how you can engage with it and be part of a interactive community going forward from here. And we hope that these interactions will lead to impact that will really take us towards this idea of a green recovery, which we're going to be exploring. The Global Green Recovery Collaborative was founded towards the beginning of the pandemic in mid-2020 by a global group of conservation leaders from all over the world. And what we had and have in common is that we all came out of a program at the University of Cambridge, a master's program called the Conservation Leadership Program. And there are about 200 people from 90 countries all over the world who have gone through this program over the past, I think, around 11 years or so. And we bring really diverse perspectives to the table. And we were excited to work together. But since then we have steadily brought more and more organizations who are not part of this program, but who are incredible. And you're going to hear from one of those organizations today, the Corcovado Foundation. And I know we have other initiatives that are featured on our site participating. But one of our goals is to just, again, bring everybody together to who are interested in learning, sharing knowledge, collaborating, and ultimately finding ways to take action. And we hope that after this program, you'll be interested in becoming a member of the platform and starting to interact with it, use the tools that we've developed to start to talk and partner up for to make a difference. And with that, I would like to introduce our moderator, Lucia Norris, to turn it back over to Lucia to jump into our roundtable discussion with our really incredible group of speakers today. Over to you, Lucia.
Thank you so much, Ross, for all the insights you have given us about the GGRC. I'm now delighted to present our panelists. I will give you a brief introduction now about them, but our amazing intern from South Africa, Audrey, will be posting fuller bios of our panelists on the Zoom chat so that you can learn more about them. I will first introduce Alejandra Monge. She's from Costa Rica. She's the director of Corcovado Foundation. She has extensive experience on promoting sustainable development, and I know that she's getting engaged with very other interesting topics now. She has been distinguished by the Deutsche Welle, I hope I'm pronouncing this well, as one of the 40 women in Latin America transforming the region for their tireless work to pursue social development and conservation of natural resources. We are also welcoming Alston Mwanza, and I hope that I'm pronouncing your last name. Okay, he is from Zambia. He's joining from Zambia now. He's a USAID Integrated Land and Resource Governance Wildlife Specialist. Alston has vast experience in community-led natural resource governance and in building communities' capacity to develop and strengthen leadership and manage resource-linked conflicts. We are also welcoming Pamela Abbott. She's from the United Kingdom. She's the director of Natural Cambridgeshire, and she has an extensive CV. But now she's very active in projects to rewild people and places, involving local people to restore degraded habitats. And we are welcoming as well our fourth panelist, Ravi Prasad, who joins from Fiji. He's a planning specialist at UNICEF and has over 10 years of professional experience in program development, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Thank you so much to our panelists for being here today and for being here from such diverse backgrounds. We love this. Just to say that following our discussion, we will open this up to questions and answers, to Q&As from the audience. So please use the Zoom chat while we are on the panel to post your questions. Okay, let's dive in. Our first question is for all of our panelists, and it goes like this. Green recovery was brought up in the context of the COVID-19 crisis. And as we emerge from this crisis and grapple with our rapidly changing environment, what is your view on what green recovery is and should be from your individual perspectives? And I would love to hear first from Alejandra.
Thank you, Lucia. Well, I'm really happy to be here. Really excited. And what a great opportunity to share ideas about like so many great things that are happening in the world that could like push us to the next level of solutions for climate change. We definitely saw lots of similarities between the COVID-19 crisis and the climate change crisis, and we can see that both situations have caused the most vulnerable groups to suffer first, hardest. And definitely one of the things that we need to push is to help these vulnerable areas to become more resilient to climate change. That is it's the thing that we've been dealing with for a while. The area where the Curacao Foundation has been working is the Osa Peninsula, which is considered one of the most biological intense places in the world, but also one of the most of the poorest areas in Costa Rica. And it's been left out of infrastructure, education, and health services. And when the COVID-19 hit, the community was completely devastated. Like I saw very few communities in Costa Rica were hit as hard as the Osa Peninsula. And mostly because tourism was the driver of the economy. And when Costa Rica closed up frontiers, we realized how dependent we were to this one activity. And that one thing put us to think about like how the lack of diversity made us less resilient. And diversity, like nature, is something that we need to replicate in everything that we do. So we started working, in figuring out ideas with communities, and we started promoting regenerative agriculture as an alternative for communities. You'll be surprised when I tell you this, but Costa Rica is, according to the UN in 2011, Costa Rica was the biggest user of synthetic agrochemicals in the world. So as green as Costa Rica promotes to be, we have a huge dependence on agrochemicals. There's a paradigm in communities that they cannot produce food without agrochemicals. So our green recovery approach was to start promoting regenerative agriculture as an alternative to reduce or remove the use of agrochemicals and focus on strengthening soils, feeding soils with carbon, which is fixed in the soil and generates a lot of benefits, not only for the farmer, but also for the climate. We also, after studying a lot about these things, because it was an adaptation after climate change. It was an adaptation after the COVID crisis. We realized that it would make communities less vulnerable to climate change too, because it reduces their the impacts of droughts and floods in agriculture. So basically, we started selling the idea to the communities that not using synthetic agrochemicals would like reduce their cost of producing. It would improve their life, their food. It would improve their water sources, and it would change that paradigm that we need to use agrochemicals to produce. And that's a thing that in Costa Rica we need to prove. So our hope is that the model that we're promoting right now is going to change Costa Rica's approach towards agriculture. As you guys know, with the war in Ukraine, lots of fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers, and other products have becoming really expensive for farmers, and Costa Rica is still promoting or pushing about finding subsidies to keep buying these fertilizers to keep producing food. And if we want to adapt to climate change, if we want to become, if we want to create this green recovery, we need to move away from fertilizers or synthetic fertilizers. So we're promoting all this new technology with mountain microorganisms, with natural fertilizers, mimicking nature, and creating amazing crops with no dependence on agrochemicals.
Thank you.
And just to finish,
Yeah,
I think
that
that one thing is that definitely, there's the whole thing about fixing carbon in the soil, which is so important for our climate change situation, right?
Thank you so much, Alejandra, for all these incredible insights. I would now like to ask Alston if he could answer as well the question.
Alston, you're on mute.
Thanks, colleagues and everyone. Thanks, Rose. I take the view that when COVID hit, everybody hoped it will not come home. And what was feared for actually came to pass, that COVID hit everyone in every region. Now, what was very interesting was that the fear was almost the same by every country, but the way it hit differently. And this is linked to infrastructure and capabilities in different regions. In this region where communities are less dependent on communal facilities, and their lives mostly, they live mostly in villages, the way COVID hit was really different from areas where you have facilities that are shared by all communities. But again, what COVID did was to break the systems that the world had relied on for a very long time. And that got people to rethink. It limited our ability to interact, it limited our ability to move, and created fear in everyone and doubts in who was responsible, who was not responsible, from politicians to everybody. So now when we bring this home in terms of how the whole breakdown of systems due to COVID affects our environment and affects our ability to keep on pushing to reverse the effects of climate change, the responses in some areas were very radical, in some areas were more of very relaxed. Now, in this part of the world where I am, what we saw was that the areas that are usually in remote areas were less affected by this pandemic. But the people in the urban areas were very much affected because of the restrictions that came, which had more effects. Now, these outcomes provided an opportunity for policymakers, for technocrats, and even for the local citizens or indigenous citizens to think differently on how to manage their lives. And this helped put up a case, strengthen a case that COVID, which was seen to have somehow originated from animals or should have been triggered by environmental imbalances, started making people think about how best to protect the systems, how best to ensure that there is sustainability in the manner that we use resources, and that there is some form of awareness to the people who are linked to resources. Interventions, of course, have been differently managed. And even now, when we are, out of this COVID pronouncement, the communities at large, the global community and different regions still believe that something equivalent to COVID may come back in the future. And that keeps everybody busy and trying to think about what happens when that comes. So for the sake of understanding how COVID can trigger our ability to recover, we must look at what each government is doing and what each organization, global organization, is doing in ensuring that there are enough measures that can help for the people to recover after the COVID pandemic. Now, I'll come back more on the details on what we are doing in this particular region or in my country and related to my activities. But for now, I just want to set the pace that the way we responded to COVID in different areas gives us a clue on what we can do better in our future to ensure that problems that emerge due to environmental or climate-related triggers can be prevented, can be managed, and it can be avoided. And we can set ourselves at a pace that is ready to manage our lives, to manage the global economies, to manage the local economies in the future. Perhaps, Lucia, I will just let it go for now, so that when I come back, I give more details on what we actually do on the ground on green recovery. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alston. That's so fantastic. I would love now to ask Pamela to please answer the question.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. Today, I went for a walk in a nature reserve. It was full of orchids and rare plants and birds sung, and it was wonderful. And when COVID struck, we in the UK were no longer able to go and visit nature reserves. We had to walk around our local streets. And for so many of us, we found the ordinary became extraordinary because we explored areas we wouldn't have even thought of going before. And many people who didn't normally go for a walk went for a walk. You saw the streets were full of people going for their daily walk. And nature took over in nature reserves, so that when we were recovering and kind of everybody was able to go back to different places, then some of those places had to remain closed because nature had taken over and nature needed to be given the space. And I would like for our green recovery, for that nature that we have to drive to actually be that nature that is everywhere for everyone, and that local people play a part in determining that. If everyone is able to do their part in whatever spare piece of land they have, either communally or for themselves, and lets nature lead, then nature can help us in our green recovery. And I think we overcomplicated it as conservation professionals. I went today with my son-in-law, and he was asking me all the names of the plants. I didn't know all the names of the plants. I felt quite bad as a conservation professional that I couldn't name it, both, you know, Latin names. Actually, it didn't matter. We were there appreciating it, and it was wonderful. And I think as soon as everybody understands that it's nature, we call it biodiversity. And when we call it, and then we call it ecosystem services and natural capital. And actually a generation ago or 2 generations ago, you know, our parents and our grandparents understood that actually you could have those wild corners and it was all okay. And I think we need to sort of return back to that, to listen to local people's voices. When I worked for the Wildlife Trust in Norfolk, we took over an area and we listened to people's memories of how they had enjoyed nature in those places. And then my vision for a green recovery is that we listen to all of those local people and we see how we can help them restore the nature that would be really meaning for them. But we also have something where we, at a landscape scale, enable collaboration. So one of my roles in Cambridgeshire, which is one of the most nature depleted counties in the UK, which is one of the most nature depleted countries, is in supporting landowners and other organizations to collaborate together to see what they would like to do. And so that in those incentives, those regulations that we can supply, and that facilitation, joining people together to see where they would like to restore nature. And that for me is that green recovery. It's for everyone, for everywhere, and nature is leading.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pamela. It has been amazing to listen to all of you. And now I will ask Ravi to please answer the question as well.
Thank you so much. So I come from Fiji and I've worked with the UN and I've worked with around 14 Pacific Island countries. And I'd want my answer to be based on the experiences that I have had. So I'd like to very briefly mention 2 concepts. One is just transition, and the second one is green recovery. Just transition, very actively pursued by the UN, is something where we have been transitioning our economy to a green economy. And this has been happening before the COVID-19 pandemic. And when we're talking about a green economy, we are trying to cut down on our reliance on energy in a way where we promote renewable energy. And just transition is making this transition in a way where we do not leave anyone behind, theoretically. The COVID-19 pandemic came in the middle and it actually reversed a lot of gains that has already been met. And it is still making it very difficult to transition toward a just economy. As an anecdote, when we were in the pandemic and we were in lockdown, I was very excited to hear all those positive stories of nature where in some parts in Europe, animals were swimming back into the canals and animals were roaming freely and plants were growing and there was less emission and cities were cleaner. And it made us realize that a lot of these problems that we have is because of our dependence on fossil fuel and how we emit. From the perspective, and so the green recovery for me is trying to recover right now from the pandemic in a way where we do not go back to our bad ways. We recover in a way we are promoting less emissions, we are promoting nature protection. And that in itself might also help us to support the just transition that I mentioned and reverse the reversals that have been happening. As a person coming from the Pacific Islands, I think it's a little unfair on our part that we are really working hard on our NDCs, nationally determined contributions towards the UNFCCC, where we are pledging these are all the activities we want to do towards mitigation. These are all the activities we are doing towards adaptation. And we are putting in so much effort. And then we have developed countries who really don't make that much an effort. And this is very ironic because a lot of these emissions do not come from the small Pacific Island countries. It usually comes from the other side of the world. So I think for me, green recovery is creating platforms where we break these barriers, where we have historically underrepresented groups, sectors, countries have a voice. And one of the things that avoids us from doing this is technological barriers. We have so many communities all over the world who do not have an online platform to be associated like this we're doing right now. So I was motivated to help co-found this collaborative so that we can reach out to these communities, reach out to these organizations and help them and be with them. So yeah, that's my definition of green recovery. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the four panelists, amazing panelists we have today. Before we pass to the next question, I would like to just bring back some of the things that were said. So much wisdom, right? So basically, some of the things were that the similarities of COVID-19 can help us understand what will happen with climate change as well. And that means that vulnerable groups suffer more. That's one of the things that we know. And something that Alejandra said is that for her, green recovery is to promote diversity in nature and also economically. So one of the things that she brings to the table is to promote regenerative agriculture to reduce the agrochemicals and for people to be independent, to be able to produce their food and also to create that as an economic income. And then Austin brought that COVID-19 taught us, it's like a little demonstration of how can climate change be. So the way that we responded to COVID-19 can also help us understand how can we respond to future threats and how we respond to future risks. And therefore we can get ready, right, to manage local and global economic challenges. And then Pamela tells us something very local, and she thinks that for her, green recovery is to allow nature to recover and to help local people play a part to recover nature. So let nature lead, basically, and help local people in supporting nature to lead, and also supporting landowners to collaborate and to facilitate regulations that will allow nature to come back, especially to places like Pamela, she was saying that she lives in a part of the UK that is very nature depleted. And then Ravi brings that green recovery is to recover in a way that we promote less emissions, we protect nature, and we have a just transition. And for him, creating platforms where we have people and communities that have been historically underrepresented is a way also to promote green recovery. Thank you so much for all this wisdom and insights. I would love to, and I have more things noted down just in case, but like to go to the next question. This is our next question is, can you tell us about what green recovery means in the context of the work you are doing, and or how you see your work directly contributing to a green recovery? And please feel free to add an example of a transformational or creative approach. And for this one, I would love to invite Pamela to answer first.
Lovely. So for me, my work in the green recovery has been sort of in three strands, but actually going quite clearly, there's a very clear line between them. I've been a member of the Mayor of London's Rewilding Task Force, where a group of us got together to think, well, how could we bring nature back to London? And we actually based quite a lot of what we were doing on the IUCN principles around rewilding and ecosystem restoration. So one of those sort of how-to is around making sure that we're not trying to endlessly reinvent the wheel, that actually lots of people have got together and have put together guidelines, and they are very, very useful. And that needs to be a feedback loop around what are the things that we could do, and then when we try it, how does it work, and how could we help share knowledge to do things better in the future? And the letting nature lead is one of the principles around the rewilding and the ecosystem restoration. And from my part, it was really wonderful to see some of our principles, which I chair an organisation called Citizen Zoo, where we help individuals rewild their hearts through coming out and being part of restoration work that we're doing locally. We have 300 people involved in a river restoration and restoring water voles to that area. We're having people breed large marsh grasshoppers in their homes with all of the proper protocols in order to restore populations to restored land. So there's a very individual style that you can do that. But with London, we were also looking at not just, you know, people's gardens and those wild spaces that are quite small, but actually at a landscape scale. Where are those areas of London where we could collaborate with different landowners in order to restore nature? In 2010, there was a report produced in relation to UK ecosystem restoration around called the Lawton Report, and some principles which a chap called Tom Dew, who used to work for one of the government agencies, summarised as sort of more, bigger, better and more joined. And those principles sort of have been seeding through all of the work that has been done in the UK by the statutory agencies and, you know, through incentives and regulations by landowners. And another strand of work that is coming across the whole of the UK, which is a really exciting new framework for the restoration of nature called local nature recovery strategies. And my work in Cambridgeshire, along with many other counties, we've kind of jumped the gun a bit because we're really keen to restore nature where we can and to collaborate with landowners. And we've just been given a £1 million fund to enable those who have land to think about how could we bring not just the sort of doubling nature ambition of our organisation, but actually new financial incentives. So there's regulatory authorities that will bring funding into this, such as how do we restore our rivers through nature-based solutions? Could those landowners take some of that funding together with new funding where, so for example, houses are built and either nutrients in the rivers or else the land that had biodiversity on it is built on. And so there's an incentive around biodiversity net gain that can be applied. And how can we sort of catalyse these investments in nature through that kind of startup funding? So I suppose it's in my sort of practice, it's all the way from individuals with a cage of little eggs that become grasshoppers that are then restored to their native zone, and in order to make that site more, that species more resilient to climate change and to restore the functioning of that ecosystem, you know, right the way through to sort of let's rewild the entirety of London, starting here. So yeah, some examples.
That's fantastic, Pamela. Congratulations for everything you're doing. I'm sure lots of people here would like to talk hours with you about how can they replicate those kind of things in their own communities. Now I will ask Ravi to please answer the question as well.
Thank you. So adding on to my introduction on what I thought green recovery was, renewable energy, just transition, and the UN, I would like to give a specific example of innovative work or inclusive work that the UN have been doing that I was involved with, which could be an example of green recovery. And to be very specific, we have funded projects on the ground in communities where we are providing electricity, energy, and water dams for irrigation in communities where these things were not present before. And these irrigation dams, they work through renewable energy. So we are not only installing renewable energy sources, we are linking it to other forms of tools and devices that could help these communities earn an income or improve some of the barriers to the income. And this way, what we are trying to do is provide a source of income for the communities and help them, first of all, sustain their livelihoods based on renewable energy to form stewardships. At the same time, these irrigation work is going to help them promote sustainable management of their farms. So they know through awareness and education that to protect biodiversity, there has to be some sort of a cycle. We are using these innovative interventions in ways where we are also reducing our energy consumption. We're providing livelihood support, and we are also trying to get them in touch with nature so that they know that if they would protect nature, they would have a source of income. I'll stop here. Maybe I'll get more into detail in the third question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Alejandra, can you please also answer our question? You're on mute.
Sorry.
Alejandra.
So this is very interesting because I feel like the green recovery has to do a lot with changing the way we do our things, and we've been doing things all wrong. Unfortunately, humans, we thought we were smarter than nature, and we're not. There's a reason why nature has been billions and billions of years of evolution, and we're just been here for, you know, some millions. And what we are seeing right now is that worldwide, like, farmers are struggling. You know, climate change has made producing successfully crops more challenging and rarer for them. And synthetic agriculture inputs are more expensive and are known to kill living things, including bees, including all the microorganisms that we need in the soil. So I feel like farmers are stuck in a vicious cycle in which soil are depleted and extenuated, and we just create more dependency on fertilizers, insecticides, and herbicides, and bringing food from different places in the world. But we rely on farmers to bring food to our tables, and farmers are struggling every day to stay in their business. All of them, even farmers that are doing monoculture and traditional farmers are struggling. It's really hard. So I feel that at one huge adaptation, one huge change to a green recovery will be to move to regenerative agriculture practices and rather than conventional agriculture. And this is going to be very hard because as like oil and fossil fuels, lobbying has been pushing for them to stay. So has traditional agriculture. So has Bayer and all these companies that are selling horrible agrochemicals that kills us all, that gives us cancer, and that also create this dependency on pesticides. So for me, the whole thing about regenerative agriculture, that is about enriching their soil, transforming, transformative aspect of rainforest microorganisms, using natural fertilizers and stuff like that, I think is a great opportunity for communities to get in the game. And the interesting thing about when there's a change in a paradigm is that everybody starts from zero. When there's a new paradigm, everybody starts from zero because it's something that people do not necessarily know. And in the communities where we're working, this opportunity has been very, very special in the Osa Peninsula because we're working with very poor communities. And the fact that they don't have to bring things from outside, that they can use the same farm's inputs, makes it a huge difference. And it's been such an amazing experience because we've been working with, it's been like a hands-on approach where we work with the farmers, we work with the families, we teach them, we provide with supplies, we provide with seeds, because some seeds that were native from the area were lost. We had food in in the Osa Peninsula that had stopped being produced because we didn't realize how important it was. And in the meantime, everybody was worried about where we were going to get our wheat, right? And now we're like producing local products that are so resilient to climate change, that are not affected so much by rain or the lack of rain or by droughts. So it's an amazing process that we've been like really pushing for, and we've seen a lot of amazing results out of this. The people that are actually implementing this new process, which is new, but it's not new because nature was doing it, they are seeing amazing results. They see plants and trees that never produce anything producing double as much. So I'm really excited about this whole thing because I feel that there are a lot of options for solving climate crisis. And it's like a personal effort. Like it's not one thing that has to be done by governments, or it's a personal effort. Like when these people are all of a sudden they're like composting and using their farm inputs and stuff like that, and it's amazing. It's like the yields are amazing, what they're getting is amazing, and how happy they are that they're bringing to their tables like healthy food, and the fact that they're not polluting their water. They love it, and we're super excited about it.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Alejandra. Now I really want to go and visit the communities at the peninsula that you are telling us about. Thank you so much. And I would love now to ask Alston to please also answer the question.
Alston?
Okay.
Great.
All right. Thanks. Thank you so much. My experience and our approach to trying to recover, to implement green recovery. Our work has not been. It's not new, so to speak. It's not new, and when you look at in the case of Zambia and even SADC, Southern Africa, we have had documents, piles of documents, talking about actions that governments, that organizations, that communities should take to have a sustainable life. So our work was basically to look at those documents and catalyze their implementation. In Southern Africa, there is an approach which is called community-based natural resource management, where communities are custodians of the resources. They must make decisions and must take action. And even if these documents are very progressive, the action was slow, or in some instances, completely not there. And the situation here is that we are fast degrading the land in the region. Particularly in Zambia, the statistics shows that about 300,000 hectares is deforested every year. So you lose that canopy cover in the forest. So our work is focused on catalyzing action at the local community level, where resources are, as a measure that will ensure sustainable resource use in the communities. Many actions that have been taken have been targeting governments or other players in the middle. Our focus has been directed at the communities themselves. How do we do it? We are building capacity at the community level to promote good governance. If we are to recover in all these things we are talking about, climate change and everything, you have to talk to people who are near the resources that we have to protect. Learning from what Pamela just said, that they are promoting rewilding in the UK, is because everything was chopped. It was chopped down in Cambridge, and now you have to rewild those areas. The situation here is that the world is there, the systems are there, the forests are there, but they are fast being damaged by the people. So our intervention is directed at those people to ensure that they can safeguard those forests, that they can safeguard those resources as a measure that will ensure that the future is clean. Now, there has been a talk about alternative livelihoods as a measure that will reduce deforestation, as a measure that will reduce resource overuse. Our approach has been to link community economies to natural resources as opposed to alternative livelihoods. Because of the limited time, I want to go into the merits or demerits of alternative livelihoods, or how it is used now to damage even the remaining piece of the forest. But suffice to say, if you link economies to natural resources, you build responsibility at that level, and people would want to have the natural resources because they know that they are going to need them every day. For instance, promoting honey production in the forest, which we do through the groups that we call community forest management groups. By promoting honey production in the forest, we build the responsibility in the communities to value the forest, to value the bees, to value the trees, to value the birds. And in doing so, they are not going to propagate systems that are going to damage the areas just because there is a say that you can have alternative livelihoods, which will make them forget about the resource base, which is the forests themselves. So we are doing our work in the communities to promote this, to harvest mushrooms, to build their economies around natural resources as opposed to just alternative livelihoods. Again, what we have been doing is to promote integration. And promoting integration of resource use as a method of green recovery is promoting all the voices in the countries and in the region. When you are discussing an issue to do with forest, and an issue to do with wildlife, and issue to do with land, usually the governments have departmentalized these functions. So you find them across different ministries. And each ministry will talk about their mandate as if it existed without the other one. For instance, a ministry responsible for land will talk about land as if there's no forest on land. And they will talk about, the ministry responsible for forests will talk about the trees as if there are no animals in that forest. So we're promoting integration by bringing these different ministries, government departments in one place and talk about these recovery issues in an integrated manner. Furthermore, when we go to the communities, many communities world over, and here it's not an exception. Women are not there when you talk about these things. So we are promoting integration. Gender balance in these discussions is an important theme of our work. We want to ensure that women's voices are represented at every level of decision-making. As we do our work in promoting governance in the villages and engaging with local authorities and traditional authorities, we go with the message that no one should be left behind. And all these things I'm saying or we're doing are not things that we have created. These are already sitting in the policies. These are pieces, progressive pieces of policy and legislation that have been gathering dust without anyone to move them to action. And our job now is simply to move people to action using these tools that exist. Where there are weaknesses, legitimate weaknesses in policy and in laws, we work with government departments to push for review of those policies and to ensure that they're inclusive in every form. We believe that by integration, bringing government departments, NGOs, and communities to look at a recovery in an integrated manner. That's the best way we can fast track the recovery process.
Thank you.
So in short, that is what we do. Thank you so much, Lucia.
Thank you so much, Alston. So much wisdom and in all the activities that you are taking forward in Zambia. Thank you so much. So before we pass to the Q&A session, just to bring out some of the ideas that came from this question, is that green recovery in the context of our panelists is to enrich the soil, to do regenerative agriculture, and also to understand that a change of paradigm, when we are doing that, everyone starts from zero. That's something that Alejandro brought. And it's amazing when you start doing these kind of activities like regenerative agriculture, to see when people are hands-on, to see how happy they understand that they are becoming more resilient. For example, in the case of Alejandra, seeds have been recovered and they are now eating more traditional foods. So it's changing the system. And in the case of Pamela, I love it how she said that she's supporting to rewild hearts. So it's basically rewilding the society and nature, and also to look for financial incentives and regulations. So working at the policy making level, but also working for from individuals, and how individuals can restore their proximities to restoring whole landscapes. And also to understand that because we are all learning, it's important to have a feedback loop, right? To learn and to correct things and then implement them and learn again, and to understand that that is how it works, basically. And also Ravi was telling us about providing energy and irrigation dams, but also not just making this a sustainable management of farms, but also for these innovative interventions to be a livelihood support in touch with nature. And Alston brings the community and how it's important to have community-based resource management, and for the custodians of resources to be leaders of the change and of implementing and catalyzing community action with integration and gender balance. So thank you so much to our panelists. And I would like to invite now to Teona, who's our project coordinator, to tell us about a couple of questions from the audience, so that we can start our interactive activity and then wrap up with the last point.
Hello again, everybody. So exciting to have you, all of you here today. And the discussion is very, very interesting and like amazing. I find it amazing how everybody is doing their work and what you are doing throughout the world. It's really, I'm very, very impressed. We do have actually two questions. I think, let me see. One question is for Marvin Vasquez. Thank you, Marvin, for the question. It's about what is everyone's take for a paradigm shift from fortress conservation to inclusive conservation, people and nature? This is the first question that we have on the floor.
Is that forest conservation?
Fortress conservation to inclusive, correct?
Yes.
So shifting from fortress to inclusive. And I'd just like to note that Marvin is also part of one of the initiatives that we have featured on the GGRC site. So Marvin, thanks for that. And I think Ravi raised his hand first.
Okay, great, thank you. I would like to just give one very specific example that with UNDP, I was trying to support in promoting, and we have learned about it in our classes. And generally, it's also a common sense approach where we are talking about ecotourism. The concept of ecotourism is you have nature and you have biodiversity and organisms around you and with you. If you stay with them, if you build stewardship, if you take care of them, then you could use it in its healthy form to get tourists to come and view it. And as far as it's sustainable, as far as it's there, you can continue going on with it. Fortress conservation would be just protecting certain animals because they're about to be extinct for their health's sake. And in some cases, it might help. I personally, and for emotional and value reasons, do not really believe in having zoos as a form of tourism because of the captivity issue. So if I had the power to move from zoos to inclusive conservation, where we have ecotourism in nature, in the wild, I would go for that because of the ethical reasons too. In summary, I would say that as much as possible, a move towards inclusive conservation is something that I would support. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. Pamela, can you please go now?
Cool. Yeah, so I agree with Ravi that sometimes for some certain species or some certain habitats, you may still need a fortress of some sorts if we are to prevent them from going extinct. But I think the difficulty is that we don't have enough nature around, and so we get very protective about those bits that we do have around. So I think the paradigm shift is that we have more nature in more places nearer to where people are, and that we help people to value and get excited by daisies in the UK, or grasshoppers, or worms, or all of those kind of things. You know, it doesn't have to be that only the kind of specialist things that the specialists get excited about. You know, nature can be just ordinary. And so if, like when we all went on our local walks, we can all see that nature everywhere and wonder at it and value it and find it, you know, smell it and hear it and see it, then, you know, that will help move over that need to protect it. I think we have a peculiar issue in the UK around letting our own domesticated animals interact with some of the wild species, and I think somehow a paradigm shift around that is needed. I don't know the answer to that. People have been wrestling with it. I think it's around habitat mosaics. So it's around having a little bit for everyone everywhere, which in a way is a kind of solution to the world's problems, really. I'll leave it there and let others come in.
Thank you so much, Pamela. I think it was Alejandra who raised her hand afterwards.
Thank you. It's funny, I never heard of the concept of fortress conservation, but we have dealt with the whole thing for like the longest time. The Corcovado Foundation was created to protect Corcovado National Park. We extended to the rest of the country later, but when Corcovado National Park was created, it created a lot of displacement too in the community. But scientists could measure the importance of protecting areas where animals could like behave as they normally do, where animals could like have their natural mating process and things like that. And since Corcovado was created, lots of people in the community have moved into protecting natural nature, just because they realize how much they have benefited from the tourism that is being created. And the interesting thing is that we have justified conservation efforts in the area because Corcovado National Park has produced so much benefit. So although communities in the beginning were displaced, now there's like a huge interest in the communities to protect this area, and there's a lot of people that are making sure that the protected area is managed the way it should be managed, just because they know that it is the nuclear base of this amazing biodiversity. So what we wouldn't want to see is like an integration of community and social economic development and conservation efforts. There's definitely these nuclear areas that are important for nature to be able to become what they need to do. And the funny things, for example, is that where years ago you would never, like, tapirs were disappearing, now tapirs are walking in the middle of the streets in the community, and people are like, stop, there's a tapir walking in the street, don't run over, and stuff like that. And that's because the community understood, like, the importance of this protected area. So that's, I think that is the thing. I mean, there's some areas that will be that needs to be protected so that the rest can be benefited.
Thanks so much, Alejandra. And Alston, we would love to know also what you think.
Yeah, thanks. My contribution, of course, I write down my colleagues who answered the question first. For me, I would say that fortress conservation in the region here, Southern Africa, earned itself a bad reputation. It has historical issues, legacy issues. The concept itself, we can question it, and also can look at how it was implemented and some injustices around that. But I believe that as my colleagues have stated, this approach of fortress conservation has merits and demerits. I think what is key is for us to look at in each particular period in time, look at what is it that we want to achieve and how can it be achieved. Of course, there is no question about respect for human rights and having participatory decision making. I think these are fundamentals that we shouldn't throw away, no matter what. But the reputation, of course, for fortress conservation in Southern Africa is tainted with all issues of injustices everywhere. But there's a point at which you must appreciate that it has helped to save what we are seeing today, that if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't be anything to say. Let me just give you a quick example in 30 seconds. Not a typical fortress conservation, as you put it, but a compromise. When rhinos were being shot to extinction in Zambia, most of the countries around the region decided to choose small areas which they could secure the rhinos because they were being poached all the time. Zambia didn't do that. They said, no, rhinos should be where they are happy to stay. They should be where they are. Despite the government having no capacity to protect the rhinos wherever they were roaming. Our neighbor Zimbabwe selected a park where they put all the rhinos and protected. South Africa, there's also a good story there in Kruger and also in other places, other reserves for those who could manage the rhinos in those protected areas. So that's how they saved. That's how they saved rhinos. And here in Zambia, where everybody believed that rhinos should stay where they are happy to stay, watched them until the last one was shot. And they had to go through an expensive process of reestablishing these things. So I think as we look at these approaches, let's look at them in historical manner, how they were implemented, but also let us preserve the advantages that these approaches have. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone for your answers. We have a couple of more very good questions from the audience. So Tiona, can you please help us with the next one?
So the next one is from Rachel Nkoma. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing the name correctly. So thanks for the diversity of views and approaches to green recovery. How possible is it for a community to adopt all these approaches for a speedy recovery response?
Who would go, Ross?
Oh no, I was just saying, so a speedy, how possible is it for communities to adapt for a speedy response? And I saw Alejandra raise her hand.
Please, Alejandra.
Well, for example, what we've seen in the past is, for example, that conservation efforts have produced amazing ecotourism benefits for communities. And we justify the protection of rainforest by saying, you know, you can sell this tree 100 times. And let me know if I'm not understanding the question correctly, but that's like on regenerative agriculture, for example, what we've seen is that people are producing double as much. People tell us like these trees never produced in 20 years. And now all of a sudden with mountain microorganisms and natural fertilizers, they're producing double as much. So I believe there is that the problem that we had is that we stopped being harmonic with nature. And then when we started like integrating nature into our life and providing nature solutions, that we will be able to have a more happier life, a more harmonious life, a more balanced life. So I think that it goes hand in hand. And I think that we've been doing is we've been like turning our back on what nature has been teaching us. And we haven't realized that we need this relationship with nature. We need to start seeing nature as part of our lives. And that would create recovery, and that would create socioeconomic benefits, and that would create restoration.
Thanks so much, Alejandra. Would someone else like to answer? How possible is it for a community to adopt all these approaches for a speedy recovery response? Yeah, who was it?
I
Austin?
added mine in the chat, so thank you. I had skipped. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ravi. Austin, did you want to? Thanks, Ravi. We will read it.
Yes, thanks for that question, Rachel Nkoma. Let me help you with that pronunciation. Yeah, so I think as we look at all these things we have talked about on green recovery, I think the idea is not really to wholesomely, you know, try to implement everything. I think what is important is to contextualize what can work in a particular situation, depending on the level at which the challenges manifest themselves. Because not one size fits all in different situations, in terms of space and time, we need to take those considerations. But if there are those measures that you'd like to fast track, and maybe that depends also to whom I'm speaking to. If I was speaking to a government official, was to say, can we remove barriers that make it difficult for policies to be implemented on the grassroots? And if I was talking to a donor, I would say, can we remove unnecessary, you know, layers of funding that gets the whole funding in the middle and ability to go down to do the work itself? So to the communities themselves, for me, is, you know, to be available when there is a call to action. That's what I would say if I have to speak to three different audiences in regard to this particular question that Rachel has brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alston. We would love to hear, if possible, one more question, and then pass to the next point and last point of our session today. You're on mute, Jonah.
So we have a question from Petros Munda about charcoal burning is causing a lot of harm to our forest because people opt to buy charcoal due to electricity, which is more expensive. And how can we engage the governments to reduce the price of electricity?
I think Ravi had already read the question. He was there with the hand, right?
Yeah, so I'd like to answer Petros' question and use it as an example for Samantha's question on what are some challenges and opportunities that you're facing right now with policymakers. Working with the UN, we try to create, we get funding from donors and we translate it into projects. We monitor, we evaluate, we report the lessons to the donors, we get more funding, and the cycle continues. In terms of charcoal burning, one of the projects that I used to do with the UNDP, I'm fairly new to UNICEF, is we would help governments build their capacity in their NDCs, nationally determined contributions, which are mitigation pledges. And we have inventories. We have inventories of what the emissions are for the country and where are these emissions coming from and what are the alternatives we can give. So in terms of Petro's question of charcoal burning, if there's a country, if there's a place and there's a lot of charcoal burning and because of that reason and electricity is very expensive, I think one of the things is for the governments to know that this is happening in that area. If the governments are not actively consulting these areas and they have not consulted, there has to be a platform where communities like this can raise their voices out. And because this is such a real issue and there's already national level work going in reducing these emissions, it's a very valid case and government could provide some subsidies and concessions in terms of providing alternative sources of clean electricity in your areas. Using this as Samantha's example, some of the challenges that policymakers face and even governments face is not being able to have a proper, accurate inventory of what is going on the ground. I think there needs to be more funding involving local perspectives, local knowledge, just like I've mentioned in this example. There has to be a two-way street where the reality on the ground should match the policies and the basis of these policies. So I think we need to have funding from the UN agencies to governments to build these capacities. And very quickly, one way in which we did this in the Pacific Islands is we helped, for example, the Kingdom of Tonga, and we helped create a Ministry of Finance and where we started doing budget tagging. So this budget tagging approach is where we help the governments tag their budgets. What were the priorities? And out of all the priorities, how much funding went to these priorities? And after we tag, it's in front of the eyes that we are not being very active in what we're supposed to achieve. So this is my response. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Would any one else would like to answer to the question of our audience? No? Yeah, well, that was a very whole, complete answer, Ravi. Thank you so much. We are very aware of time and we are soon to finish this event. So I would like to pass to the last part of our event, and I will turn to Ross and to Janet. Oh, to Ross now.
Hi, it's actually Camille and I. So again, I'm Rosalind Helfand. I'm one of the co-founders of the Global Green Recovery Collaborative. First of all, a huge thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Pamela Abbott. Thank you, Alstone Wanza, Alejandra Monga, Ravi Prasad, and Lucia for moderating, Taona for questions. Such an incredible discussion. So what we just wanted to do was take our last few minutes to show you what our platform is for those of you who are new to it and some of the features on it and we really, really hope that you will start engaging with it. And I will first turn it over to my colleague, who's another co-founder of the Global Green Recovery Collaborative, Camille Pennell. Camille is a conservation leader based in Belize. And so excited to have you on. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can all see the website. And Camille will start by actually trying to remember if I'm supposed to start or so actually I will start and go through it, and then Camille will come on briefly. But we'll make this quick and then do some closing words. And first of all, I'm just going to add our website link into the chat. And this is a free platform. So this is all an experiment in engaging our global community, as I said, in new ways to help increase the impact and success of trying to get into a positive tipping point for the future of our planet. So this is our website that you can see, greenrecovery.world. And there are two ways that at the heart of it that you can engage. One is you can go through the site and read about, gain knowledge about what's happening You can read about green recovery initiatives around the world. You can, so you can explore our initiatives, and you can read the blogs, you can read events and news, and really just make this an information space. 2, you can actually sign up to have a profile and be a member of the site, which Camille is going to share more about. And that's free also. But that will allow you to start to engage with different people and our initiatives from around the world. And so we're trying to increase motivation and awareness raising, capacity strengthening, environmental recovery, and really joint impact and working together. And you can see where we have featured initiatives or projects on the site right now. And you can see they're located all around the world. And one thing we're hoping to do is to add more of these initiatives. So if you have a project that you are really interested in having featured on the platform, please reach out to us. And just some of the other, so this is the initiatives that I just told you about. This is where we are showcasing these. So for instance, Alejandra's Corcovado Foundation initiative is featured right here, and you can click on it and learn more about what the foundation is doing, what Alejandra is doing, and how to connect and contact initiatives. And I know we also have Marvin Vasquez in our audience, who this is the initiative in Belize that Marvin is a leader of, that we also have featured on the site, as well as additional resources and case studies to learn from, which is really great. And another way that you can interact is through our discussion boards, which we're really hoping that folks will start to take advantage of. They're very interactive. To participate in the discussion boards, you actually have to become a register to be a member, and then you can start engaging with the Global Green Recovery Collaborative. And then we also have a blog that we're really hoping that people will want to propose different kinds of blog posts, and start to add these blog posts, work with us to add blog posts to the site about what you're doing. And again, the GGRC is about different levels. So some of these are very, very local, but also a global policy initiative is equally great to feature on the site, as well as different types of stakeholders. And you can access news and events. So we're trying out a system where we have news coming in from different organizations categorized in thematic areas. So you can look at some of these thematic areas and then look at the different articles that we've collected under those areas and interact that way. And we're featuring upcoming events here on our calendar, and you are very welcome to propose events for us to add to our calendar. And finally, you can read more about what we're doing here. We have our own definition of what is a green recovery on our site, and we see it as the big redesign, repairing our world and recovering from environmental damage to become healthy and resilient. The process of transforming how we live and interact with each other and our environment so that biodiversity will thrive, the climate will stabilize, and we will be able to adapt to new realities that have resulted from past ways of living. And we also see this as an equity issue, of course, with social and environmental injustices being linked. And then you can scroll down and read more about all of the team members who are part of this project and read our bios. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Camille to just show you how you can become a member and how you can engage with the membership functions on the site. So Camille, over to you.
Okay, hi everybody. As was mentioned, I am Camille Pinel, and I live and work in Belize, which is located in Central America. So Roz mentioned a lot of it already. You might be wondering, what are the benefits of becoming a member, and why you should sign up. And one of the biggest reasons is it allows you to interact with each other when you're a member. So you will go from just being able to view the website and view the content to actually participating in discussions. You can make suggestions, you can connect with the different members, and it's very simple to do. So all you have to do is, like Raz is demonstrating now, you click on become a member, and you fill in the relevant information, and of course you'll be accepted. You become a member and you'll be able to contribute to the website. You can also become an advisor. If you look at the screen, you'll see that Roz is an advisor. So the process is the same, or it's similar. You enter your information, you request to become an advisor. It'll ask you a few questions. It'll take maybe a few days to be approved. But when you become an advisor, you will have the role and you will be voluntarily taking on the responsibility to help support the other members from all over the world. As Roz mentioned, we're a global initiative. People will be able to contact you maybe for advice, or if you're a donor, for example, if you work for one of those donor agencies, you'll be able to inform people on how you can apply to certain grants or pots of funds. And we're really encouraging people, like, for example, we've heard all this useful information and opinions from our moderators, and they could be potential advisors as well. So we're encouraging you all to sign up, become a member, and to even consider becoming an advisor.
Great, and thank you for that, Camille. And I just want to just note once again that so I know we have had Alfonso. Alfonso, are you still in our audience today? So I know that Alfonso is in our audience, and you can see that you can add a lot of details or a little bit of details, but we're really encouraging folks to sign up for a whole profile on the site as a member. And then advisors are optional, but advisors really allow you to, becoming an advisor allows you to also kind of showcase more of the ways in which you would like to engage. And you can see Alstone is also a member of the site, and you can showcase more of the ways that you'd like to engage with your fellow community members. And this is a new project, so really hoping, again, to grow it and learn from it, and also learn from your experiences with it. And with that, I'll stop sharing. The link is in the site, the chat, and I'll turn it over to Janet to just offer a few words of closing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Roz and Camille. And yeah, I've also been part of the Green Recovery, the Global Green Recovery Initiative for quite some time, or right since near the beginning. And seeing others with such a passion for green recovery, such as the panelists we've seen today, has really been great and really sort of quite inspiring. And yeah, the Green Recovery and the Global Green Recovery Collaborative encourages people to join together from diverse backgrounds and from all over the world. And it really makes us happy to see people in the audience from the quick the quick response in the chat. We've seen 4 different continents and 11 different countries. There were quite a few from Zambia and quite a few from Ecuador. So that we find is very cool. And yeah, finally, we want to thank everyone for attending, especially those who've had to stay up very late, or those who have to get up very early to attend this discussion. And yeah, as Roz said, we want to encourage those who haven't done so already to go onto our website and sign up and become a member of the platform as well. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And I'll just turn it over to Lucia for some closing words.
Thank you so much to everyone, to our panelists, and to our audience. And before we say goodbye, I would love to ask everyone to turn on their cameras to take a picture of our first event. Some people had to leave, but we are so grateful with all of you who stayed as well, and everyone who was here as well. But maybe we can have a first picture, and we will be posting these on our website. Thank you so much to everyone. We hope to see you sign up. We will be looking forward to having your feedback as well, because this is an interactive session. Okay, so with everyone that has turned on their cameras, we'll take a picture and then say goodbye. Yeah?
You're taking the picture, Lucia?
Okay, well, in Spanish, I'll count. 1, 2, y 3. done. Great.
All right. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much to everyone.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
joining, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
And we will be sending out a notice of our next event. So please keep an eye out for that as we continue to build the green recovery community.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you so
Alejandra.
much to
Thank
our
you to our
amazing
panelists.
panelists as well. And to the
Bye-bye.
fantastic audience. Bye. Goodbye. Well,
We are
thank you
not
so
leaving.
much. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, me too.